welcome to session Premier 21. This is on June 16th of 2022. What we've done, we went through all of the units in detail, and now we've gone back to Unit 1 and we've broken it into more specific areas that I wanted to focus on and expand on. And now we're into Unit 2, talking about modes of thinking, and we're drilling down into it. And so tonight's topic, we're going to be going deeper into analyzing and looking at how and what and why of our thoughts. And as I mentioned leading up to this, our thoughts are really frames that contain all of our information that we are able to perceive or receive. So we have in a frame or a memory, we'll have visual information, we'll have auditory information, we may have smell and taste if we're eating something in that recalled memory. We'll have some kinesthetic information, and maybe we'll have some speech. We could be saying something, or we could be hearing words. And the combination of what we call modes form this frame, and these frames become very powerful. Now, in the early stages, it's a little bit difficult to get into this frame, so this is why I'm taking time with it. So we'll do a little discussion, which we're doing now, then we'll do our 1-minute meditation, followed by our detailed analysis. So investigating the frame. So you need to become like a Sherlock Holmes, and you need to be looking into your frames. And as I've said earlier, initially this is difficult because we're not used to doing that. And this is where meditation helps, where we slow ourselves down, take a deep breath, and just say, well, what is it? Now, in this particular episode, I'm going to be including an exercise, exercise 2, which is giving you more tools to be able to drill into these frames. So there's nothing magical about it. Whenever you remember anything, say your first birthday, that you can remember, your first birthday party, you're going to get an image, you're going to get a frame. It might be a visual image, it might be sounds, it might be smells, maybe the taste, maybe the first birthday clothes you had, whatever. And analyzing that is very, very, very important. So that's what we'll do. But first we're going to do our guided meditation. And I'm sorry, no, we're not doing a guided meditation today. We're just going to do a 1-minute meditation. Maybe on our next show, I will put a guided meditation in there. It's been a while since I did that. So yes, I will do that. In our next show, there will be a guided. But tonight, we'll just do the 1-minute meditation. Remember to practice the detachment, which allows you to stay focused, but in a soft, gentle way. And I remember in our very first session, there was a gentleman that got very upset about the word focus. Well, you need to be able to focus. I'm sorry, but you do. And people who cannot focus do not achieve very much in this reality. But you need to focus in a very specific way. You need to focus in a very gentle way so you're not blocking information, right? You're not fixated on something. You need to be able to focus in a very gentle, soft way. And this is what this detachment meditation allows you to do. It allows you to stay focused, but you're still receiving information. Then you can make the decision, is that information I want to stay with, or do I want to detach with it and go back to my original frame? Okay, play with it. And again, I think for our next show, I'll do a guided meditation, and I think I'll do a discussion on what is detachment meditation. Well, enjoy your 1-minute meditation and the discussion on investigating your frames, and then the exercise. how we behave the way we do. So understanding how people transmit their frames to us with their expectations and how we process them is very important. So we need to become like a little Sherlock Holmes. And, not all the time, but, if there's something that here's an example. Say at the end of the day, you've been out with some friends and you come back home and you sit down and you feel like something went wrong or something wasn't quite right. You're not sure what it was. So you now have the ability to replay, to replay that video, that timeline, and to examine the frames and to see what is it that made you feel the way you do now. So you had an experience, you came home, and you're not sure why you felt that way. So by examining these frames, it will give you some ideas. So here's some of the parts of the frames that we will be examining. So we will examine all of the modalities. So when we are examining an experience, say we were out with friends, and we're looking at that, we'll take the dominant frames that come up to us, and we will question each mode. And I've been giving you some examples of how to do that, but you can make your own, where you have like a little table with all the modes listed: visual, kinesthetic, auditory, speech, smell, taste. And beside them, write out what was going on in those. Then you need to look, or you should look, at the structure of the frames. Now, what I mean by this, the structure, is the look and feel. Is the frame a painting, or is it a three-dimensional picture that you can move around? Or is it a film, like a clip with different frames in it? It can be any or all of these things. So understanding the look and feel of a frame is very important to understanding the impact. Let me give you an example. If what you're looking at in a frame is far, far, far away, so you're in a stadium in the back seat looking at something happening on a stage, versus you being the person on that stage. Again, I'm referring to the filter called associated and dissociated. So it's a filter. How are you processing this? Are you processing it really attached and associated, or detached and dissociated? So there's some other, these are filters, sometimes called meta programs, but we'll be getting into those later. So understanding the layout. For instance, here's another structure thing. If you're looking at a frame, and it's an important frame to you that has meaning to you, are there other people in it? And are they aware of you looking at them, or are they just behaving as if you're invisible? So the overall outcome is what is important. So you have your frame, you've looked at all the modalities, you looked at the structure, you've analyzed in terms of what's going on in the frame, where you are in it, and so on, the time frame, whether it's a past, present, or future thing. But it's the overall outcome. How do you feel when you process this theme, this frame? What is your overall state change? And we're primarily looking for two things. We're looking for a mental state change, and we're looking for a behavioral change. Let me give you another example. First thing in the morning, what frames do you process? Now, me personally, first thing in the morning, to get myself out of bed and moving, what I will do is I will visualize a frame that something I really enjoy doing, which is my morning walk. So when I visualize myself out walking, taking my morning walk, I immediately get up out of bed, brush my teeth, and, get my glass of lemon water. But it motivates me to get up and move and get ready. And it also changes my mental state. If I'm lethargic, laying there thinking, oh, I'll sleep a half hour longer, the moment I think of that frame of me walking, my mental state changes to one of a proactive, active state. So in other words, the overall effect of this frame is that it is resourceful. I can use this frame in the morning to get up and get out of bed. It's a very resourceful frame. You will find frames that are resourceful for you. We've been talking about power frames, but they don't have to be, ones that are Superman frames. They can be frames that just help you out during your day-to-day process. Another example, if you walk in the kitchen and you see that the kitchen sink is full of dishes, what do you do? Do you walk out of the kitchen and ignore them? Or do you go over and clean the dishes? Now, if you go over and clean the dishes, there's probably a frame that you pulled up just prior to doing it. So what we'll be doing now is investigating to see what frames elicit what behaviors and what frames elicit what mental state changes, and to be really aware of ones that are resourceful and ones that are not resourceful. The idea here is, again, I'm back at power frames, is to be able to update a frame and to be able to select frames that are the absolute most resourceful for you. Here's the process again. Select a power frame, delve into it through all the modes and the way we've been discussing how to analyze a frame. And you can, if you want, this step is optional, you can pick an object externally and make it associated with that power frame. If you don't want to associate it with a neutral object, you can just give it a name, or just the very thought of looking at a frame. Sometimes I like giving things a name, like the Power Beach frame that I have. Then by visualizing the connection between, either if it's a word or it's a physical object, you visualize the connection between that and your power frame. So you basically say to yourself, this rock or crystal, or sometimes I use essential oils. If I pick up one that I like I might pick tea tree oil that has a certain meaning for me. And if I assign the smell of that oil with that frame, it will bring back that power frame. So I'd like you to get really good at this, because it's safe to do, it's fun, and it can be a great way to move forward and to be able to use these frames in a constructive way. Now, what you might find is that if you have a frame that's very effective for you, say you have a motivation frame to get up and clean the house, you might find that that frame that you created will also work for your friends and family. And the way to test this is just to talk about the frame with people that you're doing it. Don't tell them what you're doing. Just sort of, discuss the frame openly, and to see whether or not that motivates them too. This is a very common thing. What we will be learning down the road is how to look at people we admire and trust and want to emulate. We can look at their power frames and we can use their power frames. Well, that's it for session 2. And we'll be continuing on with session 3, part 1, where we'll be delving into beliefs. And beliefs are a major, major part of understanding our internal map of reality. And beliefs in this context may not necessarily mean exactly what you think they're There's different meanings for the word beliefs. In any event, as I mentioned before, if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, please feel free to reach out and email me, and I will be more than pleased to answer your questions or to communicate. Thank you very much. This exercise will be given out on December 29th, just before New Year's. And what we'll be focusing on in this exercise is, again, expanding our ability to investigate frames. And frames are the units of memory that we have associated with thoughts. So we're going to be recalling frames and looking at whether they're how they're structured. Is it a film? Is it a photo? What is it? And then looking at our primary mode and then going on to investigating submodalities. In addition to that, we're going to add something called filters. Now, I'll be doing a whole unit on filters later on, but I wanted to introduce a few here. And we'll look at our timeline, our frequency, how often we do something, whether we're associated, whether it's a personal or impersonal thing, and whether we're actually looking for a solution or we're looking for a problem. I call it the solution finder. Bob Dylan once said, I don't know where he said it, but I can imagine him saying it, "Take care of all your memories, for you cannot relive them." We can't relive them, but we can recall them. And the extent that we get comfortable recalling frames and working with them will become a real asset as we go forward. So the frames or the memories or the thoughts that you have happen in three different kind of spheres. It can happen from something that we're recalling from the past, and something I haven't talked about a lot, but you are actually experiencing a frame in real time as you're watching this video. So that's the present, and that has this particular unique quality about it. And then frames about the future, which haven't happened, that we create. And when we recall a frame, the basic structure of it will be as a photo, or it could appear to be a photo with things moving within it, sort of like looking at a TV screen or a movie screen. So this is the first thing that I like to do. You might, do something different when you're recalling a frame. But when I first recall a memory or think about what I'm doing in the present or constructing a future thought, I first get a feeling for, am I looking at a still photo or am I actually looking at activities? There's something going on in the frame. There could be people moving, things happening. And then I identify what seems to be the key primary mode. Is it the fact that I'm looking at things happening, or am I hearing words? I have other frames where the primary mode is sound, and others it's words. Then we'll investigate it. An example would be, if in a frame that we're exploring, if there were words in the frame, who would be saying them? Would it be me saying them, someone else? And what would be the intensity of the words? Were they soft? Were they loud? Were they firm? Were there a command? What was the quality of the modes? And those are all submodalities of our listening to speech. So if there is speech, who's saying the words? How loud and how intense are they? And what's their meaning? When we did our first exercise, we used a checklist which basically just gave us the 6 modes, and then we were to document it. So that was in our first exercise in our power frames. But I'd like to expand this now, this checklist. And when we're investigating the frame, we're actually going to be collecting more information. So we'll recall a frame and we'll make notes about all the submodalities. And then you see near the bottom there, the frame will have a meaning. What's the overall meaning of the frame? So in my example of my power beach frame, where I was on a beach, my power frame, for me, the meaning of that frame was that I felt strong, safe, and loved. So if I ever want to recall the feelings of being somewhere warm and safe and being appreciated and loved, I can recall my power beach frame. And just to run through the modalities on that, I had a visual, which was me standing on a beach looking at the ocean with the trees. And I had sounds. There were birds in the trees. There was the sound of the waves, and the wind was rustling the trees. I had a physical. I was standing there in the beach with bare feet, with swimming trunks on, and I had something over my shoulders. It may have been a shawl to keep the heat of the sun off my back. And there were smells. I could smell the ocean, the salt in the ocean, and I could smell the wood of the trees because they were damp and they were wet, and there's that smell of the forest nearby. And I had a taste. Again, I could taste the salt because of the wind. And I had imagined that I had just had some really nice tropical fruit like a mango, and that taste was still in my mouth. And the words of someone who I couldn't see, but it seemed to me that it was a female voice, someone I knew, someone I cared about, was just telling me that they really appreciated me and loved me and wanted me there. So those are really great 6 modes. Let's look at the next column there. We'll look at these filters and outcomes. And the first filter is that we'll be working with something called the timeline. Where was this frame on my timeline? Was it in the past, the present, or the future? Now, clearly, I wasn't doing it in the present, so it wasn't in the present. And I had never been there, so it's not something from my past. So this is a created future event. And it could be in the near future, something I could do at any moment, just to jump on a plane and travel to this tropical location. So it's a future thing. So something in my future timeline. Then in terms of frequency, is how often do I recall this frame? Is this a frame that I do many times a day, frequently, or at certain times? And I would have to say that no, it's something I do seldomly. I don't normally recall this frame. I did once or twice yesterday as I was doing some work in the kitchen. But normally, this is a frame that I would only use when I wanted to initiate those feelings. Associated is the next filter. By that, what we mean is this something where I felt like a personal attachment, or was it an impersonal kind of feeling? And definitely in this particular frame, I was in it. My feet were in the sand. I could feel and smell and taste everything. I was living it. I was there. So very, very personal, very, very close. And then finally, a solution finder. In this frame, was I seeing a problem or was I seeing a solution? And for me, clearly, I see it as a solution. It was providing me a way of maybe escape, but it was providing a way of finding some peace and calm. And then finally, in terms of outcomes, was there a mental state change? And I would say yes, it was. It did change. It made me feel more loved and secure and safe and strong. So it really gave me real positive mental state. Was there a behavioral change? Here I would say, no, not really a behavioral change. I didn't get up and do something. It wasn't a frame that I would recall to do anything in particular other than just to relax. Now, you will find frames that are motivating frames to make you do something. And we'll talk about those at a later date. So there's another column where I can make additional notes about all those filters and state changes. At the very, very bottom, there's an overall assessment of the frame. Was this frame a resourceful frame? Did it lead to a resourceful outcome? And here I would say yes. This frame for me, the Power Beach frame, is for me a very, very resourceful frame. And I will use it whenever I want to just, invigorate myself and feel really positive. So the parts of this frame investigation that's maybe a little bit new from the last exercise is we're going to actually give the frame an overall meaning. And we're going to investigate whether there was a mental state change and whether there was a behavioral change. And then the overall assessment, and this will become very important as we move forward, when you look at your frame and other people's frames, is this a resourceful frame? Did it lead to an outcome that was beneficial? So here's what I'd like you to do for this assignment, is to examine 3 frames, and you can use the form that I will provide you. Pick one from the past, and I said suggesting a childhood experience, so it doesn't have to be to your child, just clearly in the past, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And it doesn't matter what it is, just think of something and then analyze it in that detail. Go through all the components and really analyze it. And then pick a frame as close to the present as you can. Either something you're just recently experienced or something you are actually doing in this very moment. So get something as close to the present as you can and just analyze it. And then thirdly, a third frame, get a frame of something you are planning to do in the future. Definitely something, a couple of days, a week, a month, whatever distance away in the future, and recall that frame. So this is a practice thing that I'd like you to get really, really comfortable doing. Take a run at it, and I will be emailing you a copy of this PowerPoint plus the Excel spreadsheet and a link for this video. So thank you very, very much for participating in these exercises. And again, these exercises can be very, very beneficial. So practice them as frequently as you can.